Hello, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to this program on cybersecurity. My name is Maulik Barkana, and I'm the Cultural Affairs Officer at the U.S. Consulate General in Chennai. Today's program is called Do Your Part, Be Cyber Smart. This program is to commemorate Cybersecurity Awareness Month, which has been observed every October since 2004. I want to thank my colleagues at the Consulate for arranging today's program, as well as our local partners. Who are the United States India Educational Foundation, Social Media Matters in New Delhi, the National Law School of India, University, Bengaluru, and AIESSEC in Chennai. This program is part of a series of ongoing virtual programs that the Consulate has organized since the COVID pandemic began in March. Since then, we've probably done up to 40 or 50 online programs on a range of topics, including the US elections, health, faith, science, and literature. And again, today's program is about cybersecurity. The format of today's program will be a combination of presentations and questions and answers. We will be going until around 6 p.m. And we will also have a poll today. So we hope that all of the people who are tuning in can give us feedback through the poll. The internet is not just a communication tool, but it's part of the critical infrastructure that we've come to depend on. And this brings many opportunities, but also many threats. And I'd just like to quote from an executive order from the United States that was signed in May of 2017 that outlines the goal of the US government policy towards cybersecurity. It says that it should create an open, interoperable, reliable, and secure internet that fosters efficiency, innovation, communication, and economic prosperity while respecting privacy and guarding against disruption, fraud, and theft. So again, that's part of an executive order that was issued in the United States in May of 2017. I'd like to go ahead and introduce our two panelists and our moderator for today. First, we have with us Dr. A. Nagarathna. She's an associate professor of law at the National Law School of India University in Bengaluru. She is also a coordinator at the Advanced Center on Research, Development, and Training in Cyber Law and Forensics. Her subjects of interest include criminal laws, cyber laws and cyber forensics, and medical laws. She has undertaken training on cyber forensics, including on hard disk analysis, mobile forensics, network forensics, and live forensics from the Center for Development of Advanced Computing in Trivandrum in 2015 and 16. Dr. Nagarathna is an alumna of the 2017 U.S. Department of State Bureau of Educational and Cultural Exchange Program on linking digital policy to cybercrime law enforcement. Dr. Nagarathna, welcome. Thank you for joining us today. Mr. K. Venkateshmurthy is our second panelist. He is the director at Data Security Council of India, or DSCI. He has a vast experience in cybercrime investigation training and digital forensics. He was deeply involved in establishing India's unique public-private partnership initiative on cybercrime investigation training and research at the Cybercrime Police Station Crime Investigation Department headquarters in Bengaluru. This was done in partnership with the Karnataka Police, the Infosys Foundation, and DSCI. He has edited several publications for law enforcement, including the Cybercrime Investigation Manual, a pocket guide for investigators. Mr. Murthy is an alumnus of the 2017 U.S. Mission to India Exchange Program on linking digital policy to cybercrime law enforcement. Finally, Mr. Amitabh Kumar will serve as our moderator today. He is the founder of Social Media Matters, He is a cyber feminist and an activist for online safety and gender rights. He studied microsystem techniques in Germany, but his core inclination remains toward activism for gender rights and online safety. The creator of social surfing and twee surfing, Kumar has extensively worked on resolving online safety issues with platforms, including Facebook and Twitter. He acts as an advisor concerning online safety of users. He has more than 500 workshops on online safety across India, and he has successfully conducted these programs. His core expertise is in imparting trainings and leading discussions on digital parenting, mis- and disinformation, and online safety. As with our other two panelists, Mr. Kumar is an alumnus of a U.S. government exchange program. He participated in 2016 in a program on best practices in reducing gender-based violence. I believe we will pull up a poll now. But I'll go ahead and turn it over to Mr. Kumar for his remarks. And I would just invite our viewers, if you see a poll on the screen, this is just a one-question poll that will be at the beginning. So you can go ahead and respond to this poll. It's asking our viewers, on a scale of 1 to 5, my awareness of the safety, rights, and opportunities of cyberspace is: 1 is the lowest, and high is the 5 is the highest level of awareness. We'll do this poll at the beginning and end. We're just showing the poll for 1 minute, and we will compare the answers at the beginning and end. This is just good feedback for us to see if these programs are effective in raising awareness. So again, we'll give you just a few more seconds to finish up. On a scale of 1 to 5, with 5 being the highest, my awareness of the safety, rights, and opportunities of cyberspace is, and you can go ahead and mark an answer there, and we would ask that you also participate in the poll at the end of today's program towards 6 o'clock. So thank you for participating. I welcome once again our two panelists, and Mr. Kumar, I will turn it over to you as today's moderator. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Polly. Thank you for everybody who's joined in. What an amazing evening and a really important discussion to be had. As you mentioned in our introductions, all of us are IVLP alumni. And I would like to get started over there because the concept of our online safety was introduced to me during my visit to the US. So thanks a lot to the embassy and the program. Where we have gathered today and the discussion we are having is extremely important, and probably the corona pandemic has made us even more aware about the importance of internet, which was considered as a luxury tool or a luxury service till just a couple of months back. But in the last 7 months, we have seen internet is a necessity. In some countries, it's already a human right. In India, it has played a very, very significant role in livelihoods, in education, in providing social security schemes to people. But this tool has to be used with a lot of caution, with a lot of capacity building, with a lot of awareness. I really like the poll right in the beginning. Would love to see how our viewers are answering to it, because it just does not talk about the various security measures that are present, but also looks into it from a human rights perspective. So today's discussion, ladies and gentlemen, is going to be a comprehensive one. We will try and look into various topics. We have two extremely amazing experts with us. I myself have a lot of field experience, as it was shared during the introduction. So without further ado, I'll get started with Dr. Nagarathna and focus on her areas of expertise, which is cyber law. So ma'am, in your opinion, what do you think is the role of law in cybercrime? And specifically when we talk about India, where can one report it? And does India have a high conviction rate in cybercrime cases?
Thanks, Amita. Yes, so law definitely has a very, very important role to play to regulate any crime, including cybercrime. So when it comes to cybercrime, so we formally recognize this as an issue legally with the Information Technology Act, which was enacted in the year 2000. So, however, initially this law focused more on promotion and expansion of e-commerce and e-governance. There is less focus on regulation of cyber crimes. But in the year 2008, when we amended the Information Technology Act, so we could see that there was a shift of focus from expansion and promotion of e-commerce and e-governance to regulation of cyber crimes. So today, in fact, we have a comprehensive law with a lot of provisions through which we can regulate cyber crimes. And then it's not just this Information Technology Act, which is the law through which we can regulate cyber crimes. In addition, we've also added a lot of provisions into IPC, especially post 2013. There are a lot of provisions added, focusing more on protecting women even as against cyber crimes. So I can say, along with Information Technology Act, it is Indian Penal Code, which regulates certain forms of cyber crimes, and certain forms of cyber crimes which targets children can also be regulated through POCSO, Protection of Children from Sexual Offences Act. Of course, in addition to this, through judicial interpretations, we can also extend the other criminal laws depending upon, subjected to a scenario, depending upon the nature of crime. For example, Workplace Harassment Act applies if there is online sexual harassment of an employee by another, or we can also apply Immoral Traffic Prevention Act if there is online solicitation that takes place. So like this, there are many other laws. So that way, all these laws together are playing an extremely important role in regulating cyber crimes in the country. Along with that, of course, institutional framework has also been good. So we have the regular police stations which have started taking up cybercrime cases for investigation now, in addition to cybercrime police stations. That's one aspect. So coming to the number of convictions, so we can of course see an increase in the number of crimes that are getting registered, as well as that are getting convicted under various laws, especially under POCSO. There's a very significant increase that we can see when it comes to conviction rates. The recent NCRB report also indicates that there is an increase both in the registration of cases as well as in the number of convictions. But since, like any other crime, this also has its own challenges. So I don't say it's been really good. So there are like a lot of cases which are still pending investigation. So a lot of challenges that affects effective investigation. But amidst all these challenges, there is definitely an increase. Then I come to the next question of like, where do we report these cases? So depending upon under what enactment you can make it out as an offense, so there are different authorities that can be approached. But most importantly, most of the cyber crimes, almost every cyber crime is recognized as a cognizable offense in India. So be it under IT Act, Information Technology Act, or even under IPC. So when we say cognizable offense, so the first point of access to justice would be through the police station. So therefore, registration of FIR with the police station is what is generally required. And then again here it can either be the regular police station or the cybercrime police station. But within the states, they've made a distinction based on the extent of financial loss and all. So some cases goes to cybercrime police station, but otherwise there's no bar in the law when it comes to initiation of investigation as against any cybercrime. So that's about like initiating criminal proceedings. It's interesting to know that in India, some forms of cybercrimes are also recognized as civil offenses. So when the victim is forcing damages or compensation, so he can even approach the authorities through which he can get civil remedies. And that includes, if he's asking for a compensation of more than 5 crores, he can approach the normal civil code. The pecuniary jurisdiction varies from state to state. If it is less than 5 crores, he can file a private complaint with the adjudicating authorities established under the IT Act. This includes, in fact, the adjudicating authority would be secretary to IT department. So that is the institution I approach if I want civil remedies. Coming back to criminal remedies, now, suppose I don't want to go through the police because maybe I have with me all the evidences available. For example, maybe it's a case of online cheating. So where there's no need of involving police in terms of collection of evidence. So I can even file a private criminal complaint with the magistrate, the local magistrate. That is the local criminal court. And it is interesting to note that the recent amendments made to Consumer Protection Act also recognizes some forms of online wrongs, cyber wrongs, as the cases for which you can seek for remedies under consumer law. So if it is like deceit with which a consumer suffers in the course of online transactions, so we can also approach the authorities under Consumer Protection Act. So this way, so subjective to the scenario, like in which the offense can be made out, we have different institutional frameworks. And if it is, as I was mentioning earlier, if it is an offense that has taken place in form of, say, sexual harassment within workplace, so almost every workplace is required to have its own internal mechanism, so they can initiate disciplinary actions. So that's another alternative mechanism that we have. So these are the alternative mechanisms through which you can initiate proceedings as against cybercrime.
Thank you, ma'am. That is brilliantly explained. I honestly wanted to start taking notes, but I'll refer to the live and truly like a professor. So following up, ma'am, you are an alumni of the government exchange program of the US Embassy. And whatever the learnings you had through your program, were you able to put them into any best practices back at home as well, or something that you would like to share that could be enlightening for all of us?
Yeah, a lot, is what I learned as well as carried from my IVLP program in US. Just to name few. So initially, like since I'm a teacher, I'll start from what I generally do in the classroom. So I do make a comparison of how the entire procedure, including substantive law, procedural law of US and India, varies or where there are similarities. So to begin with, for example, the Miranda rights, the manner in which we have understood in India and it's been implemented in US has been different. So during my visit to one of the police station in a county in US, I actually saw how they use these procedure to educate an arrested person, and this happened in fact in our presence. While in India it's a totally different scenario, so the comparative aspect comes in the classroom. And then coming to cyber crime regulation specifically, so what we noticed during our visit to US was that there are a lot of lawyers have already specialized in cybersecurity. And when they say cybersecurity lawyers, they actually do both techno-legal, assessment of a case. So we could even see forensic small labs in the lawyers' offices and all, where they themselves try to retrieve the evidence, produce it before the court and all. Coming back to law school, where I head a center that also does training of various stakeholders, including law enforcement agencies, lawyers and all. Especially when we train lawyers, just 2 days back we had a session exclusively for lawyers where we try to integrate cybersecurity with legal professionals. So we do expose them to this necessity, where you can, not just because I'm from a law background doesn't mean I wouldn't be able to, handle this digital evidence. When I say handling digital evidence, I'm not talking about like getting into the forensic parts in depth, but at least the minimum assessment of evidence, the collection, at least the manner in which it can be produced before the court, so that its admissibility, questions are easily can be resolved in the court. So these kind of lessons are the ones that I had learned during my US visit, and which I try to inculcate during my class teachings as well as during our training programs. And most importantly, in India, as of now, there are certain challenges, which definitely affects any legal system, including India, because of which the prosecution of case becomes difficult, investigation of case becomes difficult. For example, the law even now insists for a certificate called 65B certificate, while in US there are alternative approaches. So when I teach criminal law, so I try to put those alternative approaches through existing provisions. So definitely from what I had learned to what I'm teaching while learning even today.
Amazing, ma'am. I have some more questions that I'll be certainly circle back. But now reaching out to Mr. Venkatesh. Friends, what ma'am spoke about cyber crimes and digital forensics. Well, we have one of the most renowned experts of India with us today. So, sir, I wanted to start off by asking you do you believe cyber crimes are increasing in India? And can you tell us about the latest trends in cyber crime, especially during the COVID-19 pandemic and lockdown?
Yeah. 2020, it's unofficially declared as a coronavirus year. There's a significant impact on our behavior, on our work. We need to change our way of working. So when we say we, the good citizens of the country, At the same time, there's a significant impact on the behavior and work of the criminals also. So they also adapt to the new pandemic situation. So one very interesting thing is when we talk about cyber crimes, it is very interesting to discuss about the nature of the cyber threat that is changing dramatically over the past few years. If I want to quote an example of the first computer virus developed by the two brothers from Lahore, their intention was never to harm anybody. Instead, they were upset with people trying to pirate their software without paying money for it. The virus that they developed infected the boot sector of the floppy disk to prevent its copying and would give out a warning message on the infected user's screen. The warning message on the infected user's screen displayed the actual address of the two brothers, inviting to get vaccination for the infection. Okay, it's only the over the time that hackers grew more and more ambitious, and of course, their mind also got corrupted, and then they started doing a lot of malicious activities. Also, the technological developments have given us immense benefit in different ways. But with the new benefits, there is a bonus for us. That is the problem. Along with new technologies comes the new problems. So criminals are the earliest adopters of technology, and as a result, cyber crimes will increase. Okay, so coming to the current pandemic situation and cyber crimes, lockdown means more and more people are spending more time online, especially the school students. They are more vulnerable to predators online because online gaming or their the online classes, children are forced to spend maximum time online. Okay, so with the current situation, the COVID-19 related social engineering is at rise because criminals always try to exploit people's fear and uncertainty. Whenever there is any fear or uncertainty in the society, criminals always try to take maximum benefit out of it because they always try to target what is contemporary. The contemporary issue is always exploited by the criminals. And more importantly, the employees are in stressed condition because they don't know how long this work from home would continue. And also work from home was not well prepared for us. It came as a surprise. It was a sudden decision taken by the management. And also different government schemes. You will never know what schemes are released by the governments, where to get authentic information, and especially during the lockdown period, the lockdown 1.0, 2.0, 3.0, and subsequently unlock versions. So people struggle to get correct information from the right authorities. So with this, we could see new modus operandi adopted by the criminals. Like those days, when there was shortage of hand sanitizers or face masks, there were advertisements related to bulk sale of hand sanitizers, face masks, COVID-19 test kits, because the rapid antigen test, when it was released, it's still with the authorities only. It's not available in the pharmacy shops. So we could see a lot of advertisements related to COVID-19 self-test kits, which the advertisement clearly mentioned that no need of giving out your Aadhaar number or your mobile phone number. You just purchase it online and you can do a test on your own. COVID-19 themed discounts. Some factory, they wanted to shut their operations in the country, so they offered 80% discount. So those COVID-19 themed discounts were on the rise. Malicious attachments, like somebody sends an email, say for example the AGM meeting minutes. Okay, so that document itself was infected with a malware. Phishing attempts were made. Business email compromise, because the current pandemic situation forced many of us to adopt the digital payment channels. So when the financial transactions went online, so criminals also started exploiting the situation. Because what we have found over the period for the last 10-12 years is hackers have become highly patient, because they were known for being impatient. But now I don't know whether they are practicing some vipassana kriya or some spiritual practice. But what we are observing is hackers are becoming more and more patient, which is very troubling for us, because once they have that patience, definitely they would look for a damage which is unrepairable. So business email compromise, when the gone are those days when criminals gained access to your email ID. They used to immediately reset the password, and they used to get that pleasure of you not able to access the mail. But now hackers have become more patient. They try to observe what is happening in your life based on the transactions. If there is any upcoming transactions, then they try to intervene, and they try to redirect, or they try to divert the funds that were supposed to come to you. Okay, so similarly, fake COVID-19 domains, like there was a report from the central government that there is a increased trend in registering COVID-19 related domains, and also most importantly the unverified or misinformation that were spread over the period of time when it comes to COVID-19. And also, when we talk about the increase or the cybercrime statistics in India, although we see that media reports states that there is an rapid increase in number of cybercrime cases that is getting registered. If I want to quote the example of NCRB, National Crime Record Bureau, the latest cybercrime in India, or the crime in India statistics, suggests that there is an increase in number of cases that got registered both under the Information Technology Act as well as the Indian Penal Code and other laws. But I have a different opinion on the numbers that is getting increased every year. We should look at these numbers as a result of increased awareness among the law enforcement authorities. More number of cases doesn't mean more number of cases are occurring. Let us take it otherwise. More number of cases, but it is not getting reported because of lack of IT infrastructure or lack of manpower. Okay, so now the central government and the state governments, they are taking a lot of initiatives to build the capability of the law enforcement authorities, so that there is an increase in number of cybercrime cases across the country. So while I admit that there are more and more cases are getting registered in the country, I feel that increase in the registered cybercrime cases means the cybercrime handling capabilities of the police has increased significantly. That's my take on the question.
Thank you, sir. And you have highlighted the issues and also given us a reality check in a manner. And I completely agree on the misinformation part in the cases there. In fact, we just did a research and the report has come out today. I'll also share it with you and the participants. Now, looking into the solutions about digital forensics, where you are the expert, and we have a lot of young students watching this live as well. So wanted to know from you that what are the educational qualifications required to have a career opportunity in this field, and if there are any particular courses or streams that one needs to pursue in order to be a part of the solution and really join the force of digital forensics in India?
Yeah, only two requirements, very simple requirements. The first requirement is passion. The second requirement is very large capacity to learn. I think both the requirements are not available online. You can't buy it online. So that passion for computer forensics and incident response is something you have to develop inwardly. And also the very large capacity to learn. When I say large capacity to learn, the day I admit that I am an expert or the digital forensic expert, I am done. Okay, my learning has stopped. See, like if you ask a doctor, what do you do? He says, I practice medicine. You ask a lawyer, what do you do? He say, I practice law. Because the practicing is lifelong. It is not a one-time business. Okay. So what is desired when it comes to kickstarting your career in digital forensics is more from inward qualities, like you need to have the desire to learn new things. And above all, you need to have that self-critic skills for constant improvement. You need to indulge in self-criticism. You need to compare yourself with the other people and try to understand where you are and where you have to proceed. And apart from this, the most important part is the non-technical skills, mental organization. You should have that sound state of mind. Your mental organization should be very good. You should have good record keeping capability, because you will be once you start your career in digital forensics, maybe you will be dealing with hundreds and thousands of cases. So that good record keeping is one skill set. Okay, it's a non-technical, but it's very important. And observation skills, you need to develop that observation skills. Like Sherlock Holmes solves 80% of the case based on his only observation and the deduction skills. So you need to have that, you need to develop that observation skills, you need to have that deduction skills, and you need to have a typical investigator's mindset. Okay, you are no well inferior to any investigating officer, any police officer. You need to have that investigator's mindset and ability to identify patterns and make correlations. How do you be able to identify patterns? It is possible only when you have that thirst of understanding the contemporary cybercrimes that are taking place, contemporary issues that are taking place. So now coming to answering to your question specifically. So the minimum requirements to kickstart your career in digital forensics is, one is the technical competence. You need to have certain technical background. You need to understand the many elements of operating systems, because you will be dealing with the computer, you will be dealing with the mobile. Every device will have an operating system. You need to understand how each operating system influences the existence of any digital evidence, because unless we know the boot sequence, what would happen when I power on the computer, okay, how that test is done, how that booting process is done, how the sequence of boot is done, process handling, resource allocation. So basically, from a technical point of view, you should know how it works. Okay. And the role or the function of a digital forensics is not limited to only technology. He should not brand himself as a techie. Okay. The digital forensic professionals also need some understanding of law, because end of the day, he might be very good in technology, but he should be knowing what is right, what is wrong, whether the actions that he is doing, whether it is acceptable by the law. Okay. In addition to understanding the processes and procedures followed by the law enforcement or the digital forensic scientist, you must ensure that all the digital evidence is handled in such a way that it is admissible in the court. How do we make admissible in the court of law? We need to have that legal understanding also. So a digital forensic professional is should possess some technical skill sets, followed by the legal understanding, and most importantly, the managerial abilities. Because I might be very good in technology, I might be very good in law, but the management guys, they can steal anybody's job. Okay. So MBA's rule. So as a forensic professional, you will be required to translate the techniques, methodologies, whatever procedures you have followed, that can be communicated and reproduced across various settings. It might be an authority, the firm in which I am working. It might be a court setting, because end of the day, I cannot produce a 200-page report in front of the judge. Okay, it is my managerial ability, my management skills, where I can compress the 120-page document into a concise 1-page or 1.5-page document without losing any of the important things. Okay, so now if somebody is really interested to pursue their career in digital forensics, so they need to focus on 3 aspects. Like I mentioned, a digital forensic professional is a mixture of a BTech, LLB, MBA. When I say the degrees, I'm not meaning that you should have those degrees. It's only the essential features. You need to have the mixtures, the ratio of technology, legal process, legal understanding, and management skills. So if at all, if somebody is interested to pursue their career, so there are courses offered. Thanks to pandemic, there are some positive positive developments also due to this pandemic, like many global online platforms, training platforms, they offered many of their courses free of cost, so that the techies or the professionals may take maximum benefit out of it. Okay, so similarly, there are some commercial or vendor focused courses like ENC, NCASE forensic examiner course is there. SANS conducts tuitions for GIAC courses. Like if I want to the best course, GCFA, that is GIAC Certified Forensic Analyst. Similarly, Access Data conducts a lot of boot camps. And when it comes to mixture of law and technology, I would strongly recommend PG Diploma in Cyber Law and Cyber Forensics course offered by National Law School, NLSIU, Bengaluru. So they offer that course. It's a unique combination of having both the technology as well as the law subjects offered together. And similarly, Nalsar, Hyderabad, Nalsar also offers a PG Diploma in Cyber Law. So these are some of the essential qualifications to kickstart their career. And in terms of opportunities, let me tell you, there exists a lot of opportunities. Ample opportunities exist with the consulting firms. Consulting firms are looking for those youngsters, brilliant minds who have that digital forensic understanding. Similarly, the service industry will find a lot of opportunities in the digital forensic domain, because every organization now they are thinking of setting up their own internal investigation team, where they would be in a position to handle any breach incident, cybersecurity breach incidents within their organization. So opportunities exist. Only thing is, like I mentioned, two requirements that plays a very important role. One is the passion. The second one is very large capacity to learn. Yeah.
Thank you, sir. So that was really inspiring. The good part is a lot of information and knowledge is out there, but as you said about patience and persistence and passion, that is something that we need to bring to the table. Wonderful. I have many more questions, but I was seeing the participants are also sending them through. So how about Molly? We look into what the participants have told us, and maybe we can circle back to the experts with those questions.
Okay, great. Shall we ask a few questions now from the audience? Okay, sounds good. So there have been several questions on, let's start here. This is one from Nishad N, who's asking, what can be done to modify or rectify or strengthen cyber laws in the Indian judicial system? So it's a question on how to strengthen cyber laws in India. I'll open that up to any of you, both panelists as well as the moderator, whoever wants to take the question.
I think since this whole technology is very dynamic, often changing, so accordingly, at least some provisions, if not the entire law, some provisions requires periodical review so that it matches with the changed technology, which is in fact like a concern again for every legal system, not just in India. When it comes to India, as I said earlier, provisions are very, very comprehensive. Yes, there are of course some crimes for which we may need specific provisions like sextortion or revenge pornography. So except for these, otherwise cybercrimes in general are largely covered under the existing law. So we have a very comprehensive law, but maybe we need to focus more on building that institutional framework. So that's one aspect that needs more focus. It's happening, but it needs more and more focus. I think as of now, we're finding challenges more in relation to digital evidences. So handling these evidences which are so technical, as Mr. Venkatesh was also saying, it requires a lot of technical expertise and all. So as long as the investigating officers do not come with both, very difficult to get them appreciated by the court. So that is where there should be more focus. So that's where probably we need more integration of technical and legal experts, or the integration of the two skills. Like the other concern has been like flow of information and flow of evidence from abroad. So since most often we fail there because the data is available elsewhere, or the evidence in form of data is available elsewhere, and that country's reluctance to share the same, or that country's probably their priority is protection of privacy of their citizens. So these concerns often affect any other country, including India, when they wait for or when they foresee towards another country for exchange of information and evidence. And as of now, we're following a process which is quite outdated. It's called MLAT process, Mutual Legal Assistance Treaty. Often a country may not have MLAT with another country from where it is foreseeing that flow of information or flow of evidence. So this probably needs a parallel setup. So when crimes are getting committed online, through why can't we collect evidence through email, similar channels? It's still depending on age-old method of MLAT process. So that's been concerned. So maybe addressing these issues will make the law more effective. So we have a comprehensive law, its implementation will become more effective if we're able to take care of these concerns.
Certainly, echoing that, because we handle a lot of cybercrime cases with women and children and spend a lot of time in courts, we see the implementation side of it. And specific focus is on CSAM, which is child sexual abusive material. Sadly, India is one of the hubs across the globe when it comes to this problem. But our collaboration and coordination with agencies such as NECMEC, which is based out of Washington, US, still has to improve a lot. So the implementation aspect and the awareness aspect of our law, we can do a lot more. Yes, it is digital forensics is also a very expensive space. So our law enforcement agencies still need to develop. Some of the modern ones, like the one in Telangana or Kerala, the cyber dome is at global level, but others across the country are still improving. So I think on paper, we are quite solid. In fact, we are appreciated across the globe. When it comes to the practicality, which is the legal machinery outside the court, the police and the various stakeholders, many of them are large private companies. So we need to have a strong relationships with these companies and stakeholders and internet service providers in order to make our law really functional and it to be implemented in courts.
Thank you. Mr. Murthy, do you have anything you'd like to add on that topic of strengthening the law enforcement here in India regarding cyber crimes?
Yeah, like the state governments and the central governments, they're taking a lot of initiatives when it comes to building the capability of law enforcement agencies in handling cyber crimes. One is through their state police academies, where the cybercrime is dealt as a subject, as a module, which was not there 5-6 years before. The cybercrime module was not there. It was only the guest speakers used to come and spend some time and go. Now, if you look at the country, throughout the country, you will find all the states and union territories equipped with the digital forensic laboratory also. Central government under various schemes have released funds for setting up a cyber forensic laboratory across the country. So, and also one very good thing is the public-private partnership. Many states, they are into some understanding with some private institution or academia when it comes to handling cyber crimes. Those regular interactions, all those things are taking place. And I think things are moving when you compare with the previous 10 years before. And if you compare today's scenario, I think things have moved and it is on positive side. Yeah.
Okay, thanks to all three of you. We are getting quite a few questions. We'll try to get through as many of them as we can. There are several questions related to privacy concerns or fraud. For example, Jawahar Subia is asking about the installation of apps on a mobile device. These apps sometimes are for e-commerce or health-related matters. So how can the average person protect their privacy and also guard against fraud when these apps are installed on their mobile devices?
So it's only the user awareness, because the authorities or the regulators have got a little role to play here. So convenience and privacy security don't gel together easily. So you have to be mindful whenever you are using any application. You need to be mindful what all, because see, privacy doesn't come by design. Okay, it's an option. It's not a default setting in any of the device or in any of the application. So whoever is using the application, he has to develop that interest towards his privacy. So what you need to do is whenever he is installing any application, you need to check what all rights or what all features of the phone is accessed by the application. And if it is going overboard, then it is up to the user to use or not use the application. but the regulators have very little role to play when it comes to the privacy usage in the smartphones.
I would like to add an important discussion which has already started in some of the Silicon Valleys across the globe, which is safety by design. Right now, the norms around applications are quite open, they are quite free. And data usage is not really controlled with more than any specific guidelines. And this is where I think globally we need to step up the law, where data privacy has to be viewed from a human rights perspective. It has to be seen from a legal perspective. As of now, most of us are mere data points for profit for many private organizations. And the use of data, although we agree to it in that very long terms and agreement, is actually not understood by majority of the users using the applications. And this is not only in the case of mobile apps, it's the same when it comes to browsers, it's same when it comes to any website onto the internet. So we as a cohort, like it has been taken when it comes to terrorism, when it comes to child abusive materials, when it comes to drug dealing, similarly, we need global standards where we agree. Europe made a great step forward with GDPR, which was sadly not so implementable, so it has been renewed. India is also working on a really modern law. Let's see what the final script is going to be. But as Dr. Nagarathna earlier said, this is a global issue because many of the apps we are using in India don't really have their servers in India. So we need to work with many countries to come with guidelines which can be globally implemented.
Dr. Nagarathna, do you have an intervention you'd like to make?
Yeah, so since the human rights perspective also came, so we can see this into from two perspectives. So one is when I'm voluntarily compromising with my personal right to privacy and all by way of downloading these apps or otherwise disclosing my personal information. So when it comes to civil law and all, so there's a concept called like voluntary non-fit injuria. So you like voluntarily, invited that injury. So otherwise, when it comes to online banking transaction where I have leaked sensitive information, so there's no obligation on the part of the bank to refund the money. So at the same time, what point of time I raise this complaint also matters. But when we see it as a fundamental right, which is in fact very, very important and need of the day because of the Supreme Court of India's decision that came up in a case called Puttaswamy versus Union of India, where Supreme Court reiterates and re-clarifies that right to privacy is a part of right to life and it further includes informational privacy. So then the question of can I be allowed to waive away my right, comes up. So therefore, it's becoming more an important legal issue in our country, as Amitabh was mentioning. So very soon we might have a specific law to take care of data protection as against industries, as against state, as against individuals. So the PDP bill, Personal Data Protection Bill, which is currently pending before Joint Parliamentary Committee, might anytime come up. So then maybe there will be more clarity. Thank you.
Okay, thanks to all three of you. This is a somewhat related question. This is for victims of cybercrime. And Rachel Pradeepa is asking what to do if a cybercrime victim has no access to technology and they cannot prove the perpetrators who have not left a trace, for example. So give some advice to help people who've been victims of cybercrimes.
So when it comes to online financial frauds, I can say that so when it comes to financial frauds and all, so as of now, police are also focusing on rectifying the damage that the victim has suffered. So while on one hand, investigation is a time-consuming process, complex process, but many times they do help the victim in at least retransferring the money as much as possible. I don't say it happens in every case, but to add to this, we have RBI guidelines which clearly says if you file a complaint within say 24 hours, 48 hours, so the sooner you raise your complaint, the more is the possibility of getting back the fund that I've lost. So that is with regard to financial frauds or online banking frauds. But otherwise, individually, like suppose it's an abusive content, say about child porn material or other abusive content. So we can also get blocking orders, which IT Act do provide for. Though again, that involves little time and all little complicated procedure. But of recently, we've seen that even intermediaries have become more sensitive, especially like last 1.5 years, since the Supreme Court has also issued directions to all the intermediaries to be more proactive. So we see that they do respond. So when it comes to other crimes, so that's when you will have to wait for the investigation to take place and all. So these are few issues from the victim's perspective.
Yeah, I think one of the most important aspects over here is, and why people suffer a lot, is because of victim blaming. So financial fraud is somehow become a lot better because of the RBI guidelines. If you're prompt enough to inform the bank, you will probably get most of your money back, as ma'am informed us. It is the personal crimes, for example, blackmail through sharing of non-consensual private images. Now, that is where people have a lot of shame. And sadly, our society still is focused on victim blaming and victim shaming rather than helping them out. So the larger role of counseling comes into crimes of, be it cyberbullying or be it blackmail or fraud, which a lot of young people, and we handle these cases on a daily basis, be it through dating apps or through a friend they met on social media, that they go through a negative experience. So as a friend, as a society, the role of non-profits, the role of counselors, the role of teachers becomes extremely important, because the primary help that any survivor needs is that comfort of not blaming them. Sadly, when it comes to cybercrime, like other crimes as well, that is one major problem that we face. Number two is understanding what this crime is, because as you said, if the person does not know the right terminology, impersonation and fake profile, though they sound very similar, are actually very different legally speaking. So even writing down a proper cyber crime complaint can be quite the task. So reaching out to lawyers, reaching out to non-profits who are experts in this area would be my recommendation for starters. And then working through the process would be the second advice I would give in such a scenario.
Thank you. Mr. Murthy, do you have any comment on that?
I think unlike the traditional crimes where the victim has the access to evidence, I think in crimes that are committed online, most of the time victim might not be having any access to any evidence. It's the law enforcement authorities who need to write to the intermediary. Say, for example, if my photograph is misused and somebody has created a obscene profile on Facebook or any other social media platform, so I might not be having any access to technology. I may not have created that profile at all. I may not be using the social media profile also, but still, when I come to know about it, when I go to police, it becomes the responsibility of the police to deal with the intermediaries and try to take necessary action in removing the content from the media side. That is one thing. And secondly, like the victims, police hands are also tied in many occasions, especially when the evidence is located from outside the jurisdiction of India. So then you will have to go through some legal diplomatic channel, which will take its own time. So end of the day, it's when a crime has taken place, more responsibility lies with the investigating agencies to gather digital evidence related to that case. That's what I wanted to tell.
Okay, thank you, three, because we're getting several questions on fraud and prevention and how victims can advance their legal case. Here's a question from Devi Anshu Dave Pandey. Do you have any good ideas for the most recent hot areas of research in the field of cyber forensics? So cyber forensics, what are some of the new research areas or new study areas in that field?
Yeah, one is the anti-forensics, anti-forensics is one hot topic because more and more information that comes on public domain, like I always feel that criminals are one step ahead, and also their R&D capability is very much sophisticated when you compare with the cyber forensic researchers. So they always try to remove those traces after the commission of any crime. So I think in cyber forensics, the anti-forensics or what you call as counter forensics is one hot topic, which if somebody has decided to do some research, I think anti-forensics and counter forensics, because uh, unlike the other research areas, the end result of your research may end up in developing a new product or new solution also. Okay, so it can be marketable also. So I think anti-forensics is one uh, contemporary topic you may focus.
Okay, great. Mr. Kumar or Dr. Nagarathna, anything to add on cyber forensics study?
I think Mr. Venkatesh is the authority on it, and he has enlightened us with some really cool topics. So nothing from my side.
So yeah, Venkatesh has said it very aptly. So yeah, maybe integrating those forensic procedures within the law can also be another contribution to cyber law. So the existing law, how it can be mapped with forensic needs, can be another good research area. And that will be helpful for almost every legal system, every country.
Okay, this is another question related to cyber crimes. It's a bit technical here. This is from Ratin Chakladar. Is there any real-time online resources or platform to know how a cybercrime is being investigated? What is the time frame for the information dissemination, and what are the legal frameworks in India, if any, for this one? So again, it's asking for real-time online resources or a platform to know how a cybercrime is being investigated.
So investigation is integral to a country's legal system. The way we do it in India may not be the exact same way, in which US does it. Though some basic principles can be same, but otherwise it's largely to do with the country's procedural law, substantive law. But if I have to talk about Indian procedure, yes, we do come across to an extent some sort of information on various platforms, including, in fact, DSA has very good manual that talks about how technical as well as legally, cyber crimes needs to be regulated. So that's a very good source of information. Then coming to the time frame, even for exchange of information and all, we don't have a provision which mandates, but there are guidelines. Like, for example, intermediary guideline talks about, say, responding to the law requests, if at all such request comes within, say, 3 months, but they would not want to increase it to 6 months. In a sense, it's all about retention of data. So there are periods that are prescribed for retention of data. Similarly, there's a time frame that is fixed for investigation, but that's again like if possible. So you'll have to investigate the case either within 60 days or 90 days from the date of say arrest of a person, from the day you get his remand order. So like this, here and there you have some time frames that are mentioned, but they're not mandatory because the time that you would require for one case varies from another case. It's very subjective. So these are like guidelines, but when it comes to say releasing somebody on bail, so those parts are regulated through time frames, related provisions. So otherwise, I don't think we can fix a time because it varies from case to case and varies from the kind of evidence that we're looking for and from where we are looking for. Yeah, maybe others can add to this.
Yeah, just echoing to what ma'am said, I know a little bit about this process, especially for the intermediaries, and to obtain any data, number one, we have to follow exactly the right process. The FIR has to be crystal clear and launched within 15 days of the offense, and then up to 90 days they take to provide this data. Secondly, barring a few issues like we spoke earlier, terrorism being one of them, or suicide threat being the other, where the response time is a lot quicker, and they already have hotlines in place to really get it done within 24 hours. But the question was about real-time investigation. I don't think any of our police have a mechanism where what the investigation is doing is being updated. You find out, you file the FIR, and the investigation report actually goes in front of the court. So in between that time, there is no such update as per se in India, at least. But yes, a new provision which has started is basically the ability to file FIRs online. So in some offenses, you can do it online, which has made things easier. And hopefully, in the coming years, we'll see a mechanism where one can find out in real time what exactly is happening in a particular investigation.
Yeah, I think a very tricky question, real-time online, two very important keywords. So real-time online resources to know how cyber crimes is being investigated, whether the questionnaire is asking about his or her case being investigated, or in general. If it is in general, I have a lot of issues there. Because discussing about cybercrime investigation, about different modus operandi, how criminals commit the crime using technology, and at the same time, if you want to make everything public about how those cyber crimes are investigated by the police by using technology as well as the legal processes, I think that would create further problem. So when it comes to cybercrime investigation, say the cybercrime.gov.in is what the online platform started by the Ministry of Home Affairs, MHA, Government of India. So it gives you option of reporting anonymously, as well as you can set up your own account. After authentication, you will be able to file a complaint there. Once you file a complaint there, you will also be able to track the progress in the sense I may log into that cybercrime.gov.in. I may be a resident of Bangalore, okay, but I might be sitting in Delhi. When I try to upload that complaint, so it takes some time for that complaint to reach proper authorities in Bangalore. So those information can be tracked, but the stage by stage, the investigations, I think the updates can be opted only by the investigating officer. The victim will have to consult the investigating officer and try to understand where exactly the case is progressing. That would give a lot of understanding to the victim also, what issues or what challenges the investigating officer is facing when it comes to investigation. Yeah.
Okay, great. I'd like to take this question, offer this question from Beston Matthew Adakal. Considering that the internet is global, how effective are cyber laws, say at the national level? What are the challenges in cyber forensics as a crime may happen outside the jurisdiction?
Since I did mention earlier, so when we depend on another country for exchange of information as well as collection of evidence, of course, that's a huge challenge. So it all depends on the mutual relationship between the two countries. So if there are bilateral agreements, it's at least helpful in facilitating the exchange of information and evidence. Like with US, we do have bilateral agreements. And in addition to that, the search of both the countries also quite closely work. This computer emergency response teams also. Sometimes that's also helpful, at least in cyber security incidences, related issues. So therefore, it largely depends on the will of the two states, the relationship between the two states, and if at all it is dependent on MLAT process where you're formally collecting evidence, you need to also have MLAT agreements with them. So that's about the investigation part. And then in addition to this, this is between the two countries. So in addition to this, sometimes you may also have regional conventions at certain regions. Like for example, the Budapest Convention facilitates exchange of information between the countries in European Union, but we're not a party to it. So we don't get that benefit of receiving information from there, though we're considering being a part of it, but it is yet to happen. So sometimes maybe that regional arrangements are important because otherwise jurisdiction will be a challenge. This is for collection of evidence, especially the question is also with reference to forensic evidence and all, which if at all it is of the category of material evidence or documentary evidence, so it can only come through this process. Otherwise, informally, police can get through their network, but then formally getting it requires all this complicated procedure. Now, if it is just recording a statement of somebody who is in another country, so maybe he's a witness and we just need his recorded statement. So there have been a couple of cases where courts have resorted to video conference method. So we've recorded statements of witnesses, victims from another country. Though in relation to cybercrime cases, it is not that happened, but it has happened in relation to other conventional crime. So that should probably get further expanded. So coming to forensic procedure is still not clearly indicated as to how it should be and not through any provisions of law. So there's no sections of provisions which says this is the manner in which you should collect. However, you have SOPs. So many times, we follow SOPs of another country as a model or another country as a guideline, like SBI's SOPs, standard operating procedure is something that we may also rely on. So the forensic procedure, therefore, is not within the framework of law. It's more like the guidelines that we follow. Legally, the procedure involves MLAT process, or at least you need to have a bilateral agreement along with the MLAT process.
Okay. This is a question from Malay B about privacy. Can you elaborate on why privacy from major companies, major search engines, or major social media sites, why is this needed? Because most of the information we share is apparently harmless. Location, usage, habits, etc. How likely is it that this information will be used in a way that we will not be comfortable with?
Okay, so it depends on the nature of information that I've got access to. So suppose it's about your location, what if it goes into wrong hand? Okay, so it can definitely be misused. So where a person is, where he's going, like, what if I use it for stalking or otherwise for any other criminal activity? It is just definitely not safe. And we've seen those kind of incidences happening with women passengers of, say, taxi aggregation service recipients. So that's one concern. Other concern, again, it depends on whether it is financial information or any other sensitive information. So sensitive that it can be misused. So definitely it requires legal protection. And then if it is an information that's already there in the public domain, I have myself disclosed it. So that's not the concern, but it also depends on what exact information it is and how it can be misused. So otherwise, if at all it's within a working atmosphere, why should someone know what about certain personal information of mine, which is too personal to me? So as long as it has nothing to do with my job profile and all, why should somebody know about my, say, the religion I belong to or other caste related information, like for example in Indian scenario? So some just needs to be avoided, to be accessed, to be utilized, because it's to do with the personal space of a person, it's to do with privacy of a person, and some are of such a nature that unless you protect, it can lead to other abuse, other possibilities of abuse can be ruled out, including financial frauds, etc. And again, depending upon if it is health related information, it can also go in the wrong hands, can even lead to illegal organ trafficking and all that. So therefore, it is important that we protect this privacy, and that's the reason why Puttaswamy judgment reiterates the importance of this. And the importance of it as against the intermediaries, because it's on their platform that we often exchange, so therefore they do become responsible as one of the stakeholder. I'm not saying they should be liable in every case, but they're therefore required to take care of due care and due caution. As long as they take care of that due diligence, so then they shouldn't be liable. But otherwise, yes, they're also responsible to at least give that minimum protection to the users of their platform. So hence they are also obliged to take care of privacy concerns. Thank you.
I think a very important term in this scenario is informed consent. You have certainly provided that information on a platform, but have you given them the consent to use it in any manner possible? I'll give you an example of an app which a couple of months back did the UPI enrollment of its users in a specific bank without asking the users. Now the users were account holders in a bank. They also had an app without asking its users, and then they later said this was an algorithm mistake. Or for an insurance company, making your health insurance extremely expensive, because your father and your grandfather had diabetes, and they have this data. So number one, the use of data has to be done as per the laws of the country. And because it's a new space, we are still making laws, but it has to be crystal clear. Number two, informed consent. You cannot give me a 34-page legal document in fine print and then ask me to agree or disagree. I do not understand 90% of the terminology. And when I say this, please go back to any of your apps and read the terms and conditions of the agreement. Most of the Indian lawyers in lower court also do not understand what exactly has been stated here, because these are terminologies used primarily in the United States, Europe, or Tokyo, where these apps come from. So, and historically, if we go back a little back into histories of countries like Germany and Austria, we see how data has been misused in a very disappropriate manner. So a user providing their data is very different than a user not being aware about how their data is being used. A good recommendation for everybody here is a website called Internet Freedom Foundation. There are some great explainers done over there where one can understand how data can be used or misused.
Yeah, I would like to share on specific case information. So sometime back, there was one service provider who was inserting frames onto your browser forcefully, and your browsing habits, whatever was there, that was passed on to a service provider who was located outside India. Okay. So citizens in India, one of the security researcher identified this, and he flagged it. So enforcement authorities, when they wanted to take action against that service provider and under Indian Information Technology Act, before registering the criminal case, that somebody suggested, some legal advisor like Dr. Nagarathna suggested, why don't you rate the terms and conditions before we proceed with the registration of criminal case. So when the terms and conditions were read of that service provider for which I had given my consent, it clearly mentioned, for the purpose of improving the user experience, I agree to share my demographics, my dash information, dash, 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 about 8 to 10 different keywords to the service provider's name and is its contractors, subcontractors, and all those who are doing business with the service provider. So that was the wording, that was the legal wordings that was there in the terms and conditions. So obviously, when the user himself has given the consent, like Mr. Amitabh mentioned, it's a 5-6 page document, and it's a best miniature, like we do this right on the rice. In India, we do that. So our terms and conditions would be of a font number 4 or 5. So we don't have the patience to go through individual paragraphs. So we sometimes become click monkeys. Okay, click next, finish. Okay, so I think as Mr. Amitabh rightly mentioned, I think we need to be aware, we need to be told what all information is being captured by the service provider, and it should be based on our consent. Because somebody feels that my browsing habits, sharing my browsing habits with a third party is harmless, whereas the other person might feel that after every browsing this thing, I would like to go for incognito mode. I would like to use some non-tracking browsers, search engines. Okay, so it all depends on the individual's perspective about privacy, how exactly they look privacy in their life. Yeah.
Okay, we're having a few questions on blockchain technology. I don't know if you can address that question or not, but here's one from a related question. Will the use of blockchain technology improve the security of information transfer on the internet?
Yeah, I think it's a new technology. I think whenever new technology is introduced, we generally tend to believe that it has 100% solution to 100% problems. Okay, when it comes to artificial intelligence also, it took some time for us to realize that it takes a lot of efforts in making the machine learn our traits, our habits, everything to deliver good AI result. So blockchain, it is still emerging, and it would take some more time. We need to get some good case studies, good use cases. Only then I think wide scale adoption would be possible. As of now, the many of the companies, they have adopted blockchain, and they have found that their delivery has improved. But when it comes to blockchain, was meant to secure the transactions. There is no question about security of blockchain, but how user friendly is it, and how adaptability is something very important. So I think we need to wait for some more time to see some good use cases based on which I think wide scale adoption of blockchain can be done.
Have to just say it legally. See, as long as any technology can assure that authenticity and reliability, so of course it can be adopted. So as of now, that's something that is set to have been guaranteed by blockchain technology. But as Venkata said, I think it's too early to take a final decision on this. So maybe as long as it continues to prove its authenticity, reliability, it can definitely be integrated even from law perspective.
Okay, maybe if I could ask a more personal question to each of the three of you. You went to the United States on a program sponsored by the U.S. government, different thematic programs. And I just wonder if you could talk a little bit about that and maybe how you've applied it to your work back here in India.
As I did mention in the beginning, so there were a lot of learnings definitely that we carried from there to here, which I try to put through my class lectures and training programs that we do, as well as through research that I do, publications that I do. And then there we got to interact with a lot of law firms as well as lawyers individually, police agencies, including FBI. So we did have meetings with even forensic experts and all. So we could get an idea about how they do the investigation legally, forensically. But one major change that, the difference that I could notice was, for them, there's not much of a challenge of, in the US, there's not much of a challenge of jurisdiction, especially when it comes to collection of evidence. Since most of the intermediaries operate from there, so it's convenient for the country to collect that, especially when it is required for, say, prosecuting cases of terrorism or other serious offenses. While when it comes to India, we have to depend rather on US to collect these evidences, be it from Google or Facebook or most of the other internet service providers, since they're based in US. So that's one change, difference that I could notice. So our access to evidence is definitely difficult. Even today, it's improving. Since I said earlier, we now at least have bilateral agreements. We now at least have certain agreements, and there are lots of mutual dialogues that's also going. So it's a better scenario compared to like when we had visited there. So that was one concern that is being addressed. And I also saw how cyber lawyers were carrying their experience to classrooms and were delivering teachings in the classroom. Like there also I came across a university which was offering postgraduate diploma, which was all like most of the classes were handled by cyber lawyers there, which anyways is also happening in India. So in the law school when we deliver class, so it's both techno-legal expertise that brings into the class. So therefore there are a lot of learnings that is something that we are implementing even in India. So even when we do research, so most often it's done on comparative basis, because some of the constitutional principles are same, our understanding of privacy, freedom of speech, if not completely same, but largely similar. So the freedom of speech and speech, then privacy. So it's almost been similar. So therefore, there's a law that can be togetherly worked, especially when it comes to law framework of both the countries. And most of the challenges have been same. False information is a concern for both the countries. So, and also like how this entire cyber technology has affected democratic process, the election. So again, both the countries have faced, its repercussions. So there's a lot that I think can further be done when it comes to, say, studying the two legal systems. Maybe there's a lot of things that can be taken mutually by both the countries. And this is something that I realized during my visit to US on IVLP program. Thank you.
So adding to Dr. Nagarathna's feedback about the program, I think this IVLP experience helped me both from a professional as well as a personal point of view. I could gather a lot of information about the contemporary efforts taken at the United States in handling cyber crimes, and also their laboratory, everything. So the second part is that uh, how decentralized is the cybercrime handling in the US? It was a rare and surprising experience for us to see the Treasury Department having its own cyber forensic lab. When I say cyber forensic lab, it is a state-of-the-art cyber forensic lab. The Immigration Department has its own. The US DOJ, Department of Justice, has its own cyber forensic lab. The Secret Service, the FBI's series of laboratories across the United States. I think decentralized way of functioning was one of the very important takeaway from the IVLP. And also in terms of implementation of my experience or learnings from the IVLP was upon returning from the IVLP, uh, the concept paper, whatever I had developed for setting up the Center for Cybercrime Investigation Training and Research, I think there was major overall, I think about 40 to 50% changes were made based on my experience in the IVLP, the kind of IT infrastructure, the training facility for the officers to undergo training. I think within the span of 1.5 years, we were able to replicate many of the important features that we were exposed in India. I think that was one very good and rare experience we all had in IVLP. Yeah.
Yeah, in my case, it was actually life changing in a lot of matters. I think I went there 7 or 8 years ago. I was just starting off as a professional in India, and as an activist working on the ground, you're always having little funds, and you cannot really think out of the box and think big. So one thing I learned, and I remember very, very clearly, this was in San Francisco with one of these entrepreneurs groups in Dolores Park. I remember that place where, this really inspiring talk from one of the entrepreneurs over there, which was about, being passionate and working hard and seeing how solutions fall into place. So it was a very big learning of removing fear in this space where when you're trying out something new, of course, people won't appreciate you, they won't understand you. But like Sir said earlier, that you have to be passionate about it, you have to be persistent, and you have to stay at it, which I learned in the American system. Another organization that really impressed me, and I still look up to them, is NECMEC, which is the National Institute for Missing Children, who are like the global leaders in not just missing children, but also for child safety online, and are doing amazing work. We had a field visit in Washington, a little outside Washington, where we got to learn, like Sir said, all the stakeholders sitting together in one building and working together. And I found it structurally as a really beautiful example of what all can be done when all our legal departments work and converge and work together. And number three, which is quite strange, but it was one of the activists who went with us in this group, Miss Beena Palikal, who is the strongest Dalit voice in India. I got to meet her, and now we are good friends and we are working together. So the collaborations, the one collaboration I talked about in India, the other one was with a program called It Gets Better, which is using social media for social change for LGBTQ communities and raising awareness. And now when I returned, then I really understood the power of using internet for raising awareness and building capacities. So it was a epic program, and for every person watching, I think you should apply for it. If possible, do visit the United States, but you should travel a lot, because that really opens your horizon to what all are the possibilities over there. So I am eternally grateful to the US Embassy for choosing me for that. and was a really good program. And I hope you expand it and many more people get to learn from it.
Good. Well, thank you. Thank you to the three of you for sharing those perspectives from the United States. Well, we're running short on time. We just have about a little less than 10 minutes to go. So I'd like to offer the opportunity for the three of you to give sort of summary remarks. I'll just let you know some of the questions that we didn't get to related to the safety of children online, in particular cyberbullying. And we also had more questions about, preventing hacking, or just, what the average consumer could do to protect themselves. And if you have any recommendations for books or resources for helping people to be more aware about cyber issues. So maybe I'll just turn it over first to Dr. Nagarathna, and then we'll go to Mr. Murthy, and finally Mr. Kumar, just for maybe 1 or 2 minute wrap up, just a summary, some final thoughts. Over to you, Dr. Nagarathna.
Right. So as Mr. Venkatesh has already said, so there's an online portal as well where people can lodge the complaints, so for which you don't have to go to police stations and all, and even anonymous complaints can be filed. Especially this is more important for victims of cybercrime, the women and children victims of cybercrimes. So the law has been extremely proactive. So are the law enforcement agency when it comes to abuse of this technology against women and children. So and Supreme Court directions are also flowing in this direction. So their guidelines are also flowing in this direction. So and then however, the challenges of jurisdiction technology continues to be the same, but I think this is one domain that has to grow on everyday basis, because the technology is such that, so similarly legal approach should also be simultaneously dynamic and changing. So and then since it's cybersecurity month, I think all of us do individually we should contribute towards cybersecurity, making ourselves aware as well as spreading this awareness to everyone who are around us is the most important message that I would want to convey. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Murthy, over to you.
Yeah, I would like to mention about two different developments that has taken place for the last one and a half month. One is the reporting and management system. For now, it is on pilot basis. It is running for Delhi, the residents of Delhi, for prevention of any money loss in case of cyber financial fraud. Because when I was going through the comments, I think many had that concern of financial loss. Somebody siphon off the hard-earned money, say 50,000 is siphoned off without any clue what to do in such a case. So now I think the Ministry of Home Affairs, the Home Department, they have that broader picture in their mind. So as a pilot phase, they have started this reporting and management system as part of the cybercrime.gov.in, where if I receive any alert message from my bank that 20,000 or 50,000 is debited from my account, I can immediately call this number, which is there on the website. I can call that number, and I need to give all the information from who is the beneficiary, from my account to whose account the money was transferred. If that information is given, I think the authorities would immediately act with the recipient bank, and they will take necessary steps to freeze that funds, so that the money loss can be prevented. I think this is one very good, encouraging and welcome step that is taken by the Ministry of Home Affairs. And the second issue I would like to discuss is about the cyber volunteers concept. Cybercrime volunteers concept is floated by the Ministry of Home Affairs. It aims to provide a platform to deal with the cybercrimes in a coordinated and very comprehensive manner. Because the Ministry of Home Affairs has this I4C project, India Cybercrime Coordination Center. So as part of that I4C, they have started this cybercrime volunteer program, where the citizens would play a very significant role in flagging the unlawful content, whatever unlawful content they come across. So that can be flagged by the citizens who have already registered themselves as cybercrime volunteer. So now, what is this volunteer unlawful content? If you ask, so anything which affects the security, sovereignty, integrity of the country, which disturbs the communal harmony, the content that is aimed towards disturbing the public order, and most importantly, the child CSAM, what we call child sexual abusive material. If I, as a citizen, I find some website or some WhatsApp group or some Telegram group running this business of distributing the CSAM material, I can, as part of this volunteer program, I can report. So I think that these are two very important development in the pandemic situation central government has introduced. I think over the period, I'm 100% sure that more and more such features will be included in the cybercrime.gov.in portal, because the very intention of setting up this portal was initially to handle only offenses against women and children. Later, they expanded the scope of including all other crimes also, which include the financial crime, the impersonation, the identity theft, all those obscenity, all those things were introduced. So I think we are in the right direction.
Thank you, Mr. Murthy. We'll go to Mr. Kumar now for his final.
Thank you. There was a question about cyberbullying, just 3 extremely important points. It has increased during the pandemic, and if somebody reaches out to you and says they are being cyberbullied, please don't deny it as a small problem, that there are bigger things happening in the world, because it does leave a long impression on the person who suffers through it. Number 2, inform the authorities, be it school, be it police, be it your boss, inform them that you are being cyberbullied. And number 3, please listen to these survivors. I was given the job of moderation with some amazing panelists, got a lot of learning. So thank you a lot once again to the whole team in Chennai. And we are right on time, so over to you.
Thank you. Thank you. I want to thank especially our 3 panelists, Dr. Nagarathna, Mr. Venkatesh Murthy, and Amitabh Kumar. Thank you for being panelists and moderators respectively. Thank you for your time and sharing your expertise with us. I know we had people tuning in from throughout India, not just South India. So this was a very good program with a broad reach. And we'd like your feedback, as I mentioned. We'll go ahead and post that poll here. This is the final poll for viewers on a scale of 1 to 5. At the conclusion of this program, my awareness of the safety, rights, and opportunities on cyberspace is, again, 1 is the lowest and 5 is the highest. While you're filling out the poll, I would also like to thank our partners, the United States India Educational Foundation, Social Media Matters in New Delhi, the Cyber Law Center at the National Law School of India University in Bengaluru, and in Chennai, AIESEC. So thank you very much to our program partners. I also want to certainly thank my colleagues in Chennai who worked very hard on this program: Biju Kumar, Suman, Chitra, Gokul, TGV. We had many, many people evident, but we couldn't do it without them. So we'll go ahead and close the poll. I want to thank you for your attendance at this program and hope to see you soon again on another virtual program organized by the U.S. Consulate General in Chennai. Thanks, everybody, and good night.